So we have, what year is this vehicle? Huh. So we have, this is a 2010 Ford. So these are common, the E-Series vans. They're very common for the doors like messing up, and they're very common for the roof rusting. Let me show the top. Let me see. You can get it out of here. So the Fords, let me see. The Fords are very common. Oh, okay. Let me get the mic here so y'all can hear me. The Fords are very common for rusting out right there. So what happens is the water will stay in this valley right there, and eventually it starts to rust. So right there, we're fixing this rust spot right there. And this is very common on these vans, all right? So I'm gonna show y'all how to fix those. It's gonna be very, it's gonna be very effective, and it's gonna be very low cost. This particular van, we're gonna paint the whole roof, and then we're gonna fix all this cracks here. But let's just say if you're trying to just fix that rust spot, right, that hole, because it's leaking all over your headliner, and you're getting your dashboard, and your seats are getting all wet, right? So what you're gonna wanna do, here, let me get camera back to Aaron. So there's a couple of things that we can do. What we're doing on this, you can get like a wire wheel brush or something to clean off the rust at first. We use this. We put it on there with the air hose. If you don't have an air hose, you can use a wire brush, like the ones for the barbecue pit. You can use a wire brush, get all the rust off. You can put a rust fighter on it. They sell it like it's called a rust fighter. You spray it, you leave it overnight, and it turns the rust black. That's just to kind of slow down the rust. But the best way to do it is just to grind off all the old rust to where it's bare metal. And then what we did was we got some of these sanding discs. They sell these at Home Depot. This is a new 3M, the way they made the sandpaper. And so what we did was we got it and we cut it. And so we made it like a screen, almost like a fiberglass mat. You can also use a fiberglass mat if you want, the cloth. That will probably work well too, but we use this because it has a little bit more openings in it, and it's almost gonna act as like a reinforcement. You can use this. This is a quick set epoxy. They also sell this at Home Depot. But what we're using is this. This is a 3M panel bond. This panel bond's probably like about $65. This is probably like maybe 15 bucks. So if you're trying to do it yourself at the house, you could probably use this, and it'll probably save you a lot of money. This requires having this special gun, and it requires a lot more shit to get it on there. But what we did was we got a spreader. You know, we put some of this epoxy. We actually use this one, but you can use this one. We made our little screens, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like from the bottom. This is Andres. It's Andres. Say what's up.
Nice to meet you.
So what we did was we put the screen on there, and then we used the epoxy to bond it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill it from the top. So whenever we fill it from the top, it's not gonna be dripping down. The screen's actually gonna like hold it like a barrier. And so it's also a reinforcement. We're not using like Bondo or silicone or anything because we want to seal it off. This is not gonna be this is probably gonna last several years. It's not a permanent like forever fix, but it will give you about maybe another 3 years. It's very common on these vans to rust out. This is a quick solution for that. We actually had to take the headliner off because the headliner was all like, it was all water spots, and the guy was complaining that, hey, every time it rains, my seat gets all wet, and pretty soon it'll probably mess up your dashboard and everything. So let me show you what the top looks like. Let's see. This is what the top looks like, and it's ready. It's ready for us to put the epoxy on top. See it? The screen's right there. So whenever we put the epoxy on top, it's not gonna drip all the way down. And make sure you clean around the edges so the epoxy sticks, right? And rule number 1, there's no pouting. Because you're like this. Let's flame it. Andres is gonna get. This is the color he's gonna paint his car. Look. What is the color, Andres? New Indy yellow. So have that there for inspiration. So we're just gonna make some little strips just to kind of sit in there, and all these are just gonna reinforce, and it's gonna help it from sagging. Like, because once you mix this liquid, it's gonna get real watery, and you don't want to have it running everywhere. You want it to build up.
It's like a drywall patch.
Yeah, like a drywall patch. You could probably even use a drywall patch too. That's a good idea. Well, the drywall patch the hose might be too big.
Yeah, and they're also metal. So.
Well, the metal wouldn't be bad either. So we're gonna apply a little bit of this epoxy. This is panel bond. It's the same thing as that epoxy. Make sure you put the cap on this. So we have our strips here. We're just gonna mix this up. Can you get that ladder ready, Andres? So I can walk right. This is a 5-minute set, so it sits pretty quick. They have a faster set. They have a 1-minute set. I would say you're good with the 5-minute. You want to make sure your area is clean. Andres, grab a rag with some lacquer thinner and wipe that area really quick around that area. Thank you. You ready? Things are gonna dry pretty quick, so I need you to hurry. I mean, honestly, we don't even have to really use, if we don't want to. We don't even have to use the screen if we don't want to. But it's just gonna help us add a little bit of reinforcement to that. I'm gonna put a thin layer over the whole thing.
How far out from the rust spots do you want sand?
You just want to get enough around it, because you don't want to put the panel bond or the epoxy over this paint. It needs to have a sanded surface for it to stick. I don't like the way this looks. I'm gonna take this big. Oh, let me see. Maybe let's see it. I'm gonna try to get the shape as best I can. That way, we don't have to do too much sanding on top of it. There's a little area right here I'm trying to fix. A little area that's kind of sticking up right there. Oops. So that area, let me see, can I see the camera? That area is pretty sealed up. That's the epoxy right there. So there's a little area sticking up, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back with the grinder, and we're gonna level all this out. You can even sand this with 80 if you wanted to, and it's gonna give you a pretty smooth surface. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna paint the whole roof with this. But one thing that you can do to paint this, you can get a Rust-Oleum spray can, and you can use a white, and you can spray the Rust-Oleum over that. The Rust-Oleum is an oil-based paint, so it's gonna have a lot of protective to it. So if you don't have the equipment to paint the whole roof and a paint booth and all this stuff, use a can of Rust-Oleum from Home Depot, and you'll fix that problem right there. If you want to, you can clean those other areas too and spray Rust-Oleum in all those. And the Rust-Oleum is oil-based, so it doesn't allow water to penetrate. There it is, guys. The finished product. Got all of them fixed up. Got it painted, the whole roof. We went ahead and painted the whole roof, but if you don't have the paint booth to paint the whole roof, you can just use a oil-based Rust-Oleum spray can, and you can just touch up that little area right there.